Welcome to iPen Podcast, Interviews and Conversations. Here we bring entrepreneurs and their business to their audience and communities as well as ours. We welcome and connect with them to share who they are and what they do. Authors, entrepreneurs, we extend the invitation to promote your business here on our podcast and in iPen Magazine. Your article, your story, your promotions, how you can connect with others, a new audience, a quarterly magazine presented online for all to view and subscribe to. For articles, ads, and subscriptions, please contact ipendesigns@gmail.com. For your viewing, you can see past articles, past interviews on www.nannettembbuchanan.com. Welcome to the show. Good evening. My name is Nannette Buchanan, and this is iPen Podcast. Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first show of the new year, and just like all other shows, we are doing dynamic things, and we want you to know that you are included in all things iPen. So tonight, we start out with everything that we've done before, letting you know that you could be a part of this. You could be a part of our podcast as well as be a part of our magazine. We welcome anyone and everyone that has a business. If you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're leading in businesses, please don't hesitate. Contact us and we'll let you know if we can't have you on the show, but we don't turn anyone away. So know that once you contact us, we're going to find a spot for you because we're building a community. And with that being said, my community is led by my partner in crime. She does everything for me, makes sure the mistakes and everything are taken care of, and looks out for those that might be trying to sneak up behind without going to that website. So I welcome Felice Reeves. Good evening, sweetie. How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year. And we're gonna have to be really careful about that partner in crime tonight because of our guest.
Yeah. With me, it's partner in crime and it's already done. With him, it might be a problem.
You might be able to turn us in, and we've been
we might not be able to say too much.
Not too much.
Keep it on the hush hush. Mm-hmm. Put the shovel away.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Don't okay. Or that's my fingerprints off the shovel. At least.
Yeah, get your fingerprints off the shovel. But that's the thing about the dynamics in being an author and the dynamics in being a writer. We get to visit all of these different avenues, and you get to see all of these different things. But sometimes reality plays into it. And I always say I write reality fiction. Well, this man did the dynamic of writing the realities. Yeah. So I can't wait to talk to him and find out exactly, what he had to put into it, how he had to put into it, and what he had to do. Our guest tonight is author Maurice Hicks. He's from Maryland, but I'm going to bring him to the stage as we do. Our format has not changed that much. We don't introduce them. We let them introduce themselves. So if he says it wrong, it's on him. And we welcome to the stage author Maurice Hicks. Good evening, sir. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Can you just let our audience know just a little bit, just a touch, just an air or flare of who you are?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a native Baltimorean, born and raised here. I joined the Marines at age of 17. Went into the reserves, joined the Baltimore Police Department in 1983, and joined Prince George's County Police Department, where I retired as a lieutenant. And I've worked in a variety of units, everything from street narcotics, major narcotics, homicide, and I was the leader of an FBI homicide task force.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So now, am I to just think of the fact that okay, Maryland law enforcement, FBI. I just want to know about After all of that, and we're going to dig into some of that, but after all of that, you stepped into being a private detective agency
Yes, I did. I became a private investigator after I retired from the police department.
after retiring. After
Yes.
all of that, you still had the drive to want to be involved.
Well, actually, I tried first starting a training company. That was my
Mhm.
first, and I realized that that was a hard sell, even though I had a degree in management. That was a hard sell. But when I became a private investigator, because I had been a police officer 20 years, that was an easy sell. I could easily get customers. There was a lot of trust because of my background. So that's how I
Okay. Okay.
became a private
Okay.
investigator.
So now you said you tried to, what was it you said you tried to do first?
I started a training company. I was training security companies.
Oh, so you were you just were doing training for security
Yes, and
and they
leadership
didn't
training,
take to
diversity.
that.
No, people always saw me for a detective. No matter what, no matter other things I'd done in
So
life.
tell me what's the difference between you training the individuals that are doing security, you're training them and teaching them what they have to watch out for and everything else, but running the private detective agency,
Mhm.
was there a difference in the clientele? Was there a difference in the who you hired? What was the difference?
Well, it was easy sell for security companies, but I was trying to go after other major corporations, teaching
Mhm,
leadership and things like that. And for
mhm.
them, they had the stereotypical thing in their mind. He's a police officer. He doesn't know about management and leadership. So that was a
Oh,
difficult
Oh,
sell.
okay.
Yes,
mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Which
Okay.
we both know is not true.
Mhm.
correct.
Right. We both know that that's not true because a good 85 to 90% of your job is management.
Right.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's especially being that you were a lieutenant
Mhm.
and being a higher rank, you weren't just an officer. You had went up the ranks. So management had to be one of your major, things that you did.
Yes,
Mhm.
crisis management, 400 level.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
Exactly.
first we should unpack who you are because we don't want our audience to go away thinking that kind of the same or making the assumption of the same thing. We've gotten right into what you do, but who's Maurice Hicks? Who are you? In 5,000 words or less, tell us who you are.
Maurice
How
is
you go ahead.
yes, Maurice is an introvert that pretty much grew up avoiding trouble all his life.
Mhm.
uh, avoided social interaction, had no interest in military, no interest in law enforcement, and just by fluke, I went down with a friend who wanted to join the Marines. And while I was there, the recruiter said, "I'm glad you want to become a United States Marine." I said, "Sir, I don't want to become a Marine." He said, "Son, while you're here, I want you to take this test." So being a quiet, obedient young man, I said, "Yes, sir."
Oh.
Oh, wow. So you got flim flammed in.
Yes. And the same thing happened to me in Baltimore. My cousin wanted to become a police officer in Baltimore. So he
Mhm.
said, Can you walk down there with me? So I went down there with him. The recruiter said, "Son, I'm glad you want to become a police officer, sir. I'm not interested in being a police officer. I'm just here with my cousin." He goes, "Son, while you're here, I want you to take this test." I said, "Yes, sir." And I ended up joining the Marines. My buddy didn't. I joined the Baltimore Police Department. He didn't. And the same
Oh,
thing happened to me
Oh
in
my
Prince George's
goodness.
County. I
you
went
need a
down with my
good set of
partner
friends.
who wanted to become a Prince George's County police officer. He said, "Son, while you're here waiting, I want you to take this test." I said, "Yes, sir." And I
Wow.
joined, and he didn't.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Well,
Mm,
now looking back on that, because it's funny that a lot of us that become professionals, when we look back over our career, we find ourselves in predicaments that we did not put ourselves in.
mhm,
We find ourselves having jobs that we're like, well, I really didn't try for that job. The boss came in one day and told me to, hey, I need you to cover here, and the next thing you know, that's your job, that's your position. Or I
Yeah.
need you to do this, and then that's your position. But
Mhm.
just explain to me, out of all of those things that you just said, you got chief awards of merit, veterans, and foreign, you got awards in it. So there had to be a root somewhere. There had to
Absolutely.
there had to be a root somewhere. And a lot of times we don't know our purpose. So tell me, when you, like you said, you went with a friend, the friend, led you this way, and then the cousin led you that way, and then another friend led you that way. Did you ever think about just saying, look, I'm not even going to go, because every time I go, I'm connected
Well,
to what I don't want to
well,
be connected to? Or
well,
was it at some point that it became, you know what, I know what I'm doing, I know what it is? Or was it at that last minute when you said you wanted to start your own company?
I digress with regard. If I go back to when I was 11 years old, something happened that really changed the trajectory of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I moved with my grandfather, and he lived across the street from a place where people shot up heroin. So I would see people
Mm,
shooting up heroin every day.
mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor who taught me karate. And one day, these people who lived in this abandoned garage, they shot up heroin, they burglarized her home.
Mm,
And on the way back to bring the stuff in the garage, one of the kids, he pulled up his shirt and showed me a gun, and he motioned me not to say anything. And I remember being, terrified, So later on, my mentor came home and asked me a simple question: "Had you seen anything?" And I hesitated for a second, and I told her no.
Mm.
mm,
And that troubled me for years.
Oh,
Um, you know, I was afraid there was a code on the street where you don't snitch. I was
yeah.
afraid what they may
mm-hmm.
do to my family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward 10 years later, I'm 21 years old. Now I'm work for Baltimore Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my sergeant I want to become a detective.
Mm.
That lands me on foot patrol in the projects.
Oh Lord.
So
Ooh.
I'm walking around 8 hours a day, you know, just talking to people, no place to eat, nothing else the whole day. So I run across this lady who has her head down, and I asked her, what's wrong? And she said, they burglarized my home. So
Mm,
I'm a rookie, so I said, well, let me take a report. I said, who's investigating your case? She said, investigating the case? Nobody's investigating the case. I ain't called the police.
Oh.
So I'm like, well, why wouldn't you call the police? She said, y'all don't care
mm-hmm.
about us. Are you kidding me?
Mm.
So I said, well, let me take a report. So I go into her house and I look, I don't see any furniture, anything. I see these two toddlers sitting on the floor. I don't see any toys, anything. So I said, are you getting new furniture? He said, you don't understand what I'm saying to you. They took everything,
Wow.
my,
Wow.
including my food, our clothes, my refrigerator ornaments, my Bible, my kids' toys, the clothes off the clothing line, my laundry detergent. They had
Wow.
completely wiped this lady's house out.
Oh my word.
And so she said, you don't care. I said, look at me. I care.
Yeah.
So I took a very detailed report, and I thought about what happened to me when I was 11 years
Right,
old.
when you're little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like me saw what happened.
Right.
So I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, knocked on some doors, asked neighbors, of course, no, just like me, nobody saw anything.
Right.
So I walked past this other unit, and I looked peeking. Lo and behold, I still remember to this day. It was a wagon with the wheel missing, a red leather coat, her Bible, her refrigerator ornaments. I'm like, oh my god, that's her stuff. So I went and
Mm,
grabbed the lady, and I came back over, and I pointed to her. And she said, "Oh my God, that's my stuff." So I found out who lived there, tracked it down on the street, brought it back there, and said, "Look, the gig is up." So I was able to get a bunch of her stuff back.
Mm.
So the next day, I was still asking people, and I was able to find her rest of the stuff that was in a blanket in the woods.
mm,
So after that, word got around there was this rookie who cared about people.
Yeah.
And people
mm.
start coming to me with their unsolved cases, unsolved, unreported cases.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I realized that was my calling. God had me in law enforcement for a
Yeah, had you
reason.
there. That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Even
right.
that first experience was for a reason, huh?
Right,
Yes.
right. There's a
Yeah.
connection. Right,
And my
Mm.
sergeant said to me 6 months later, he said, Maurice, how many people do you know down here? I said, I know everybody. He said, that was the
Mm.
point. You want to be a detective, you got to get to know people and get them to trust you.
Yeah.
So,
mm-hmm.
I was angry all that time. He used to tease me about my legs going to be humongous when I got off the beat. But he really, and ironically, He was a former homicide detective and a former narcotics detective. Two
Really?
things that
Oh, okay. So he knew.
Well,
He
look at
knew.
God,
yes,
though, for that
He
alignment.
knew. Well, in
Wow.
between all of the your detective thing, you took time to become, and I think it's a, as Felice said, it's a godsend, and we don't always know it. We don't always, we fit into it, but we don't know why we're fitting. We don't even know what we're doing. We're going day by day, just trying to be the best we can be.
Mhm.
Um, you took the time to become an educator.
yes,
Did you do that on the in between? Did you do that after? But you taught 28 college courses.
Mhm.
yes. I did that toward the end, about the 3 years before I retired. I
Mm-hmm.
decided I wanted to teach. Uh,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to teach at a place where I was a student,
Mhm.
and I was a I was going through a lot of these cases, trying to figure these things out while I was a student. So I said,
Mhm.
"Wow, my students can benefit from this real world experience."
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started doing, I started using my actual cases as case studies in my
Nice.
college classes. So
Mhm.
what I would
Mm-hmm.
do, I would
That's
present the
smart.
case. Yeah, I would present the
Mm-hmm.
case to them. I wouldn't tell them it was an actual case of
Sure.
mine
Uh-huh.
until
Right.
the end.
Yeah.
And then the students like, "Oh my God, it's a real case." I said, "Now you just went through the hell I went through."
Yeah.
I
Right.
had to make those
Right.
quick
Quick decisions and everything.
decisions.
Right.
I had to deal with all the legal ramifications
Mhm.
if I got it wrong.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Mm-hmm.
students, they really loved that style of teaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
was able to get promotions
Did
at
you
the
enjoy it?
university. Oh, I loved it. Oh my God, I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
Wow.
good. That's good.
Wow.
Now, did you go back to the academy at all to do any of your courses?
No, I never did.
Mhm.
No. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Well, after I retired, I moved to Nevada.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was the
Okay.
PI in Las Vegas
Mhm.
for 15 years.
Oh, that
Mm-hmm.
must have
Eventually, I
been
moved back.
interesting. Give us something.
Yeah.
That's got to be interesting.
Yeah,
This
Oh
I
my
need a
story.
goodness.
story about one story.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah. I have in Las Vegas. I had a I had a homeless person
Mhm.
that won a large settlement,
Mm,
and it was at the statute of limitations.
mm,
And this law firm, this big dollar law firm, had done everything in their power to find this guy,
mhm.
but he's homeless. Okay,
Yeah.
he doesn't
Oh,
he,
okay.
he doesn't have a phone, a pager, no electronics, no home.
Mhm.
So they were at the statute of limitations. They invested all this time, so they hired me. So I had to go through the homeless community to
And
try to
find the
find him.
guy.
Uh-huh.
The only clue I had, I talked to some homeless people. They said he got in a car on his way to Utah. I said, "Where in Utah?" I have no idea.
Oh, wow.
All I know is some church people. What church? I have no idea. That's the only lead I had,
Oh
and I
my
found him.
goodness.
And
You
you found
found
him.
him.
I found him.
Of course
Let me
you did.
let me
Oh my
and I
goodness.
tell you briefly how I found him.
Mhm.
So, like most detectives, you can only you try to use hunches. So, okay, well, ask somebody. I said, well, what is the closest part of Utah to Nevada? And they said St. George. I started calling St. George, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I started calling homeless shelters. So when I called a homeless shelter, they're like, well, sir, that's confidential information.
Yeah.
My response, do you want to be the one to tell this homeless guy that
That
he's not
he
gonna get all this money?
right,
Right.
and he
To the,
can't get
okay.
it.
So
Right.
finally, one of the centers told me, okay, he just left. I said, well, where do homeless people normally go when they leave the shelter? They said, what's a library? I said, what's the name of the library? So I called the library, and
Mhm.
they said they didn't announce me he wasn't there. I said, can you go outside and look for him?
Wow.
So they go outside,
Mm-mm.
you don't see him. And this is something I learned. The next step is what I learned from being a commander. I always network with other commanders in other jurisdictions. Particularly, I
Mm,
was a commander of robbery, so I
Mm-hmm.
knew other PIs in the area, and
yeah.
in the Asian area. So I called
Mm-hmm.
a PI in St. George and say, "Hey, Chuck, do me a favor, ride down to that library and start
Right. And
interviewing
see
some
if you
people."
see
Right,
him.
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
So,
so you got the fine art of delegating, and I love
yes. So he
But
called
see,
me.
that's the same thing
Hmm.
that I said in the beginning about management.
it.
A
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize how many management and communication
Mhm.
I found was the top two things to get it done for your subordinates,
Mhm.
as well as getting it done for those that were incarcerated.
Mm.
Yes.
You have to be able to communicate
Mhm.
either on their level or understanding, having empathy and sympathy. You
Mhm.
have to be able to communicate both ways. And in
Mhm.
order to do that, you got to be a community person.
Mm.
You
Yes.
can't be somebody that's sitting behind a desk and has no idea what's going on outside the door.
Wow.
And communicate with people from all walks of life, from homeless
All
people to
walks.
rich people.
Sure.
Yes, yes. You got to
Sure.
be able to do it. And the thing about it is, see, the other thing that I found so profound about your bio and the information that I got from just watching certain things that you do online and how you communicate and everything else. What
Mhm.
I got from it was, okay, you can't deny the education,
Mm.
and you can't deny the fact that he's comfortable enough to diminish the education.
Mm.
Because when you talk to some people, like you talk to that homeless guy, you
Mhm.
can't go there and talk, Webster Dictionary or the thesaurus to him. You got to talk the same way that they talk. You got to, like the lady said, you don't care. You got to
Mm.
show some of that. You got to show some of that. And a lot of times they turn their back on people that they think are overeducated.
Right.
If you got too much, they don't want to be bothered with you.
Mm.
And you
But
know
So,
what's
I
surprising?
think
I'm
that's
sorry. Go ahead.
fantastic. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. And I tell you what's surprising to me is how many people really want to help if you do know how to talk to them. I've had other PI cases, people on drugs, strung out on drugs. I'm looking for them. But
mhm.
many people want to help. Like you said, as long as you don't look down to them,
Yeah.
look down on them and talk to them, I'm just shocked at how many people want to help.
Mhm.
Mhm, mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
So,
Now let me ask this though. Oh, okay, you go through the police department, and we understand all of the challenges and everything with that. But I think I want to do this one first. I think I want to do this one first. The political entanglement with the office politics.
mhm.
Lord,
Break that
yes.
down for us.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, this is only an hour show too. So,
Break that down for us.
You're
And the only
fighting.
reason why I brought it up, just so
mm,
that the
Mhm,
audience will know as
mhm,
well, the reason I brought it up is a lot of times, especially in, like I said, I was behind the wall. So I didn't walk a beat. I didn't talk to the neighbors. I talked to families when they come to visit, so they're on their better behavior. I won't say it was best, but
mm,
they're on their better behavior. So I'm not dealing with them in their element. I'm dealing with them in an element that they've been told this is where you're going to be.
mhm,
But you were connected to both sides.
mhm,
You had the
yes.
element that you had to be in that had to be politically correct. You had the office politics, and then you had to go to the street and deal with the street politics. So before we get to the street and the chaos and stuff like that, what was people don't know that there's a difference between the political, because they think everything is political. The cops are political.
Mhm,
mm.
yes. And, you know, there's a lot of competition. That's how they look at it. I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as serving the community, but they look at it as competition.
Mm.
Um, and you have investigators that will withhold information from you so you can't make cases.
Wow.
Mhm,
They'll
mhm.
withhold information. People current one case, guy had a stash of weapons and he said, "Don't tell Mo nothing."
Mm.
Wow.
Mhm.
There's another case where I seized 4 kilos of cocaine uh, that was shipped from Cali, Colombia. And
Mhm.
there's another detective in the unit who has everybody in the division working on his case, and he's come up dry. So he goes, he tells the lieutenant, I think the C.J. Hicks guy is related to me. Now, mind you, he's investigating Jamaican posse, and I'm investigating some Colombians. So there is no connection.
Wow.
And it's
There's
so
no
bad.
connection there.
Wow.
It's so bad that my lieutenant comes to me and said, Maurice, I need to look at the detective wants to look at the drug to see if it's connected to his. I'm like, how would he possibly know by looking at my drugs
That they're
that they
even
belong to
connected.
him?
Right.
And then I said, man, I said, no, this is evidence. He's not coming anywhere near this.
Yeah.
He comes back again. He really wants to see. I said, he's a detective. Tell him no. He's to the same rank as me. He's what I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I want to see it. I'm like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
Mm.
There's that office politics.
Right.
So
So
what do you think that? Where does that come from? Because I'm a novice, and I hear these things, through the media or whatever about, and of course, there's some, of course, a lot of negative connotation for that, but the behind the scenes stuff, and where do you think that comes from? In Because is it? I don't know. You speak on it because I don't know. Where do you think that
oh
comes
sure. Well, one thing about being a detective is that if you don't produce, they always have that uniform hanging over your head. If you
Hmm.
from?
can't produce, you could
They're gonna
always go
put you
back to
back in that
uniform.
uniform. That's right.
Mhm,
And a lot of officers are afraid to be back in uniform.
Hmm.
mm,
Why? Because it's dangerous. You have to think
mhm,
fast, and you can make a mistake that could ruin your career in a blink of an eye.
mhm,
Hmm.
So, and you live and die. And when you're a detective, a major narcotics detective, like I was at the time,
mhm,
you're evaluated by the amount of drugs you seize, the amount of
Hmm.
assets, meaning money,
Hmm.
vehicles,
mm,
homes. And
yeah,
if you can't produce, you're gone.
you're right.
Hmm.
So, and besides, people have big egos, so they don't
Mhm,
Hmm.
want
yeah,
the young rookie to get the big face.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're not going to work as hard either
mm,
because
No,
they think they got an easy in.
mm,
They're not going to work as hard.
mm,
well, plus,
Hmm.
we have people who've been there for years, and they can pick up the
Hmm.
phone and say, uh, FBI. This is one trick that they do.
mhm,
FBI. They want to do a case in Maryland, but they're from D.C., the
mhm,
Washington field office. So to circumvent, to burn the agents in Maryland out of the case, they'll call Prince George's County Police and say, "We got a case." Have Prince George's County seize it. Then they both get a stat from it. So those are kind of
Wow.
games they play.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it sounds like it becomes more self preservation than actual, you know, uh, integrity in doing the job.
No, there's
Right?
no the integrity goes out the window.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, the integrity goes out the window, and you have to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. In your on your end, but you have to be so vigilant to not only what's going on the street. You have to also be vigilant to what's going on inside the office. You have to actually pay your mind to. Felicia, you were supposed to do that.
that's why I started laughing. I'm so sorry, but yeah. So,
Um, you have to automatically understand that no matter what gets done or how it gets done, um, that somewhere along the line you're gonna lose out if you don't pay attention on both ends. You
Yes.
you got to be able to balance both ends,
boy.
and that's where, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maurice, that's where the officers go through the stress. They go through getting being the alcoholics. They go through being depressed. They go through going through all of that because they're struggling to stay out of the uniform because they want to stay as a detective or they want to stay in that rank.
Mhm,
So they become a problem to themselves.
Yes. And there's a lot of other things that they have. That people of a different persuasion at times have going for them. They can get prosecutors working with them. They can get people out of jail that you can't.
wow.
They can get they can get money to make buys that you can't.
Mhm,
So you have to always work around, find a way around, the
mhm,
office politics. And one way I did it was, they wouldn't give me money, very much money to buy, so I could had the acting skills of Al Pacino.
mhm.
But I convinced them I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
drug dealer. I can only give $350. It's a stretch.
Wow.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I started doing, I would have people meet me on federal property and I get the feds to pay for it. So I
Oh,
always had to find a way around stuff
very
constantly,
good.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right,
So,
always.
so I was
right.
going to ask you. So, what really was it or is? Because I still think you have it. What is your secret to navigating, especially in that jungle of one, it's your job, but then the people that are supposed to be in support and of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
on the same team as you, what's your secret for getting through that and still
Balancing
being
those challenges. Yes.
and still having a kind heart to serve? Because, you know, in the midst of all that corruption, how did you have Teflon?
Well, it's interesting as I look back and all the hell I went through in the Marines, especially as recruit training.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of it, and
Really?
yeah, that really prepared me. I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea when I was
Hmm.
getting kicked in the head with those boots and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Uh,
Lord.
Getting
Mm-hmm.
me the Steve Urkel to toughen up.
Hmm.
Right, right, right,
you
right,
know
right.
that and just and starting in Baltimore
Hmm.
was a big help for me because by the time I
Bigger
went to Prince
city.
George, I
Mm-hmm.
had worked in the city, and they say
Mm-hmm.
a city cop learns more in 1 year than a county officer learns in 5, and I believe that, or maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I had
Yeah.
that at my sergeant, like I said, having a homicide background, narcotics.
Hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
had I had some advantages that a lot of other rookies didn't have
Hmm.
because I was a police officer in a previous jurisdiction.
Right,
Hmm.
right. And then not only that, just just to touch on it too, the chaos and danger. Like you said, the struggling public, struggling with the public and everything else. I know that in my career, we used to have the Scared Straight program for the
Hmm.
kids, and
Hmm.
you have all of these other connectors that you're trying to connect the public into knowing what the chaos and the danger is.
Hmm.
And they don't really understand. Kids will be kids. Kids will do this, and they don't understand a kid with a gun is a kid, is a person with a gun.
Hmm.
It's not so much, that they can't do. It doesn't matter how old they are, they could still kill you. If a kid is selling drugs, he could still kill. That drug can still be deadly. So the chaos and the danger and struggling with the public, you being a detective, you were more hands on with the public because you're going and doing investigative work. You're not doing just a regular report and then turn the report over to the investigative unit. You are the investigative unit. So, some of the things that you learned in doing that, did you ever wonder, how much was missing? And did you ever think about, other than going into your private detective agency, did you ever think about the mentoring side of it to put some of that into mentorship for the youth or for the young adults?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm a mentor now at my church.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
tell you, when we talk about how I got through a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
some of the greatest lessons I learned, the spiritual foundation I got from attending
Yeah.
Sunday school,
Hmm.
I use a lot of those life lessons, and they took me a long way. And I mentored
Mm-hmm.
a lot of officers in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of officers.
Hmm.
And I was blessed because when I started in Baltimore, I had people that young African American officers who took, older, I'm sorry, officers who kind of mentored me informally right from the very beginning. And I took that same philosophy into
Yeah.
Prince George.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my, two of my, I was a field training officer when I was still a private, and two of my rookies became lieutenants like I did.
Yay.
The officer
Mm-hmm.
became police officer of the year, and it was a sergeant. So uh, I feel really good about the people that I've mentored along the way, and my students. A lot of my students I've mentored, university students I've mentored
Mhm.
as well.
Well,
Oh,
I just
good.
say, I want to say right now, just thank God for you in your spirit, because again, that is such a challenge. And even especially in this today, well, I don't even want to say especially in today's world, because the American history has just been horrible, because we've you know done horrible things or had horrible things done to us, from day one. But to be in that environment and then be that source of light, in that darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Baby, you are shining the light
Right.
into that darkness. So I just want to say thank you so much for your service and for your God serving heart to do that, because, too much in this world, the evil
Mm-hmm.
triumphs over.
Hmm.
That
Now,
But
was
what
think
about
thank you.
your expectations? Did they meet your reality?
you mean the people I work with, or
Like you just saying, okay, you didn't know what you were getting into because you said you went
mm,
with a friend and the friend left you.
yeah,
So you didn't
yeah,
really know what to
right,
expect then.
right.
But once you did get into
Mhm.
the military and then you did get into the officers and then you did get in, did the reality of what was going on really meet your expectations of what was going on? Or were you like me, totally shocked?
I wasn't shocked because growing up, one of the things that the reason why I stay in law enforcement is growing up living. I describe it as living under siege, and always
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
wondering why the police didn't roll down that alley
mhm,
and stop those
Mm-hmm.
people from shooting heroin
mhm,
in an abandoned garage where you didn't even need a search warrant to get it, to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
Why we had to live that way.
mhm,
Where I always wondered where were their bosses? How come
mhm.
they didn't do their jobs?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm,
I approach law enforcement again as a calling
mm,
Mm-hmm.
because of I grew up because what I grew up seeing,
yeah.
the shootings and everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a different perspective, and it caused problems when I made, particularly when I made rank, when I made sergeant lieutenant,
Mhm.
because of these
Mhm.
ethical standards that I had.
Mhm,
I had a lot of challenges
yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
Imagine.
because people like the status quo. They want to make the big salary, have the big home, but do they
Mhm.
care about people?
Yeah.
Are they
Right.
trying to make a
Right.
difference? It's a
Right.
whole
Right.
nother topic.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
And why take the job if you're not going to do the job?
Mm.
You know. Yeah.
Well,
Why?
It's
Why
exactly what I
even?
say in my preface of my book.
mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes.
So speaking of your book, because I was
Yes.
super
We're
curious.
looking at it for looking for trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah, but so before we get into the actual book of it all and all that's in it, at what point did it, occur to you that you had this book in you and you needed to write it, and then what purpose was it serving before we actually, get into that?
Mm.
So tell us about your journey to authorship in all of this.
Well, my first clue, now, first I thought, no one's interested in this because this is everyday life for me.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
my best friend and my cousin, when I talked about writing it years ago, they said, Maurice, nobody wants to read about that. Everybody knows what goes on in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And I actually believed them.
Mm.
Then came The Wire,
Mm.
The Corner, New Jack
Right.
City.
Right. Right.
I was like,
Right.
I could have
Right.
wrote those books. Those are some of the many things I experienced. And then
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
first clue that I had something that was interesting. Other officers will ask me to repeat stories of my cases, my encounters on the street. They said, Maurice, tell me that story again. Or tell them about this.
Hmm.
So I said, maybe I have something here.
Hmm.
But
Mhm.
when it really crystallized for me is when my students, through those case studies, when they found out that those were actual cases that I was presenting,
Mhm. Mhm.
they all said, this will make an excellent book. And
Yeah.
that's when I
Right.
said, I'm going to do
Right.
it.
Mm.
Right. So now the title, Looking for Trouble, it would lead one to believe that the person that or the characters that are in the book, they wouldn't look at it as
Mhm.
your book. They would
Mhm.
look at it
Mm,
as you said, the
mm,
wire, something that's going
mm,
on. Um, they would look at it from a different perspective. They would say, well, no officer would write a book that says looking for trouble because you're not looking for trouble.
mm,
You don't want
mm,
trouble.
mm.
What made you pick that as the title?
A
Mhm.
couple of things. First of all, the irony of it all, the fact that I spent my life trying to avoid trouble, my
Yes.
entire life, strategically avoid the fate of many other people.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But along the way, this nerdy kid who had no kind of street sense whatsoever
Mhm.
developed instincts that a lot of other officers didn't have.
Mm.
And my sergeant said to me one day, he's Maurice, you could find trouble, which I did. You could find trouble at 7 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
in the dead of winter. He's the only person I know can find a criminal on a Sunday morning in the
Mhm.
dead of winter.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so that was he told me, I just had a knack, for catching. But
Right.
the other reason is that the main character, Mr. Barksdale, this drug kingpin, that's what he loves more than anything in the world. More than his
Mm,
beautiful women, more than his money.
mhm,
He loves trouble. And he goes
mm.
out
Mm,
every day looking for people in the community to devour. That's his
Wow.
mm,
favorite thing. And his
Wow.
favorite targets was some of these young kids
Mhm,
in my beat, which drew me into,
mhm,
investigating him when he was shooting and killing these kids in my beat that
mhm.
I came to know.
So this was an
mhm,
actual person.
Yes, I changed the names of the
Right.
characters,
Yes.
but
You
this
did.
is
Yeah.
actual, all these are actual cases.
Wow.
mhm, mhm. Wow,
Mm.
wow.
Wow.
And see, I tease, and well, I don't tease. I use it actually as a
Mhm,
tagline that I write reality fiction because I do
mhm,
just about the same thing. I take stories that we read about and we hear about and people gossip about and talk about, and I change the names of the
Mm.
characters and
mhm,
I put the what if in it.
mhm,
Well, what if this should happen, or what if,
mhm,
as you're talking, you're like, well, why would she do that? Well, I'm putting that in there.
mhm,
Well, why would they say that? I'm putting that in there. But in your thing, it's like this is what truly went on and people are going, wow,
yeah.
because reality is so much more
Mhm,
than fiction.
mhm,
We look at it and say, okay, that's what it is, but it's so much more when you have somebody that is really doing these things,
mhm,
that is really setting kids up to fail,
mhm,
that's really setting up a system to fail. You really look at it and say, they really are doing that. Yes,
mhm,
they're really doing that.
mhm,
So in these cases that you have, or the looking for trouble, of course there's more. Of course, there's got to be more because I know you were not able to put all of it in one book.
mhm.
Correct. I'm
Yeah.
working
So,
on a sequel now. I'm about
Um,
quarter way through my sequel. Looking for a
mhm,
book or
nice.
two.
mhm.
Awesome.
Of course, you got
Awesome.
more. Of course, of course, of course.
Mhm,
It wouldn't be
mhm,
if you didn't, because you've got
mhm.
too much of a background
Mm.
for it. Now, how much browbeating did you get from those that know you from being who you are? Now that you've done the publishing and you have the book, how many of them have actually said to you, man, you shouldn't have wrote that, or man, why didn't you write this sooner?
Mhm,
Well, it's interesting because I go to our retirees meeting
mhm,
and I would sell my books there. People would ask me about the books, and
Mhm.
the uh, the retiree FOP president told me one day I couldn't sell books there anymore.
oh.
Now, I'm just having them sitting on the table,
Mhm,
okay? And I'm not soliciting anybody. People they see on social media have the book.
mhm.
So that tells me
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some resentment there for some reason,
Oh yeah. Mm,
Mhm.
mm,
Mhm.
mm, mm,
I'm like,
mm.
Mhm.
What
wow,
you
back
And
wait.
to
you
that
and
again.
at the time did you finish the book though, you're already retired. Like you said, you're
Yes,
going to a retirement meeting. So there should
right,
not be any blocking on you selling the book because
right,
you're not
Mhm.
actively employed.
right.
Right.
And I'm just sitting there with the book on the table. I'm not soliciting anybody, but they told me
Yeah.
basically put the book away.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Haters gonna hate. That's
Yes.
what they say.
I
That's
have a
what
plan
they
for that too. I have a plan
say.
for that too. I'm gonna
Very
use
good.
that, like,
Very good.
turn those
Mm-mm.
lemons into lemonade like I always do.
Yes.
Mm-mm,
Yes. You have that.
mm-mm.
Now,
Wow.
again.
That is different. So now what did you find out during the journey that you didn't know? Okay, you know all the police stuff, you know all of that. You know how to
Mhm.
write because we write reports all the time.
Mhm.
You know how to gather information because you're gathering information with all your investigations. What did you find out about writing a book that really threw you for a loop?
Well, I found a lot about myself.
Mm,
Mhm.
Patterns, good, both good and bad.
yeah.
Yeah, I really learned a lot about myself, and I really was oblivious to how all this affected me till I started writing about it.
Mm,
Mm. Mhm.
You know,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
I remember pursuing a serial rapist, and I had to leave my home. The serial rapist is running around the neighborhood where I live. I have to leave my wife and 5 children unprotected.
Oh.
Right, right. Because you were on that case.
Right, midnight when he was going around doing it. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
things like that. Going after these very dangerous people who are killing people. I have to,
Mhm.
you know. I've spent hours and
Mhm.
hours on surveillance. I have to go through the politics of people who don't want to see you succeed. You're in
Yeah.
the,
Right.
you're in
Right.
the, you're in the pressure cooker. You
Yeah.
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
yeah, you're fighting the battle on two fronts. And
Mm.
Mhm.
for me, I get to know these kids, their parents, and they're expecting me to get results for them. They,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
I'm, I like I said, a lot of these murders occurred in my old patrol beat.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
I'm talking to these
Mhm.
people, and they're like, my son got killed, and
Mm.
nothing's ever been done about it. And it tears you up.
Yeah.
And then you see these, give you one example, one kid that he was out there selling drugs, and I walked up on him. I said, I know you're not out here trying to make me look bad selling drugs in my beat. And he
Mm.
said, Officer Higgs, I could have you killed. I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Son,
Ooh.
put my arm around him and said, son, please, now listen, you can't have me killed.
Mhm.
You can have yourself killed because I know
Ooh.
who you work for.
Mhm.
And he's not going to
Mhm.
send you a bill when you come up short. He's going
Mm.
to kill you, going to have you killed.
Mm.
And this is one of many interactions I have with these kids.
Wow.
And so, of course, he's murdered.
Mhm.
And so I'm constantly, particularly when I was a patrol officer before I became a lieutenant, I'm constantly talking to these kids, please get away from this guy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And at one
Mhm.
point, uh, I see the kingpin. At this time, he's an aspiring kingpin, and
Mm.
he pretty much ran the area. So I see him out there, and he's standing on top of the hill, and he's like looking down like King Kong or like a lion. He's
Oh
just like
wow.
Mhm.
the breeze in his hair. He's just enjoying this great power that he has.
Uh-huh.
So I rolled up to him and I said, "Let my people go."
Mm.
Mm.
And he looks at me and he's with his two henchmen. One is called Jungle Jim, the other one's called Jungle Jim, aka the Murder Boy, and the other guy's Pitbull. And
Wow.
he started laughing. He elbowed them. He said, "What'd you just say?" I said, "Let my people go."
Mhm.
I said, "What would Martin Luther King say if he knew what you were doing?
Uh-huh.
My brother, you're nothing but a magnet for death and destruction." I said, "These people are going to be magnets for enemy fire." He said, "I don't understand that stuff. Only thing I understand is money."
Mm.
Mm.
And I looked at him and I walked
Mhm.
back to my patrol car and I just sat there. I'm like, I'm gonna do something about this.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
might be only a little rookie right now,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do something
Yeah,
about this.
eventually, yeah, you got to get
Yeah,
through to them some kind of way. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah, and so I'm talking to these kids going away to school, and I'm talking to them. Hey, would it hurt you to grab a book to go to when you're on the way to school? You know what I mean? So one
mhm.
of them said, Hicks,
Mhm.
that's the only thing I know. I said, man, you're 16 years old. Give it a chance. Drugs is the only thing I know. So when and
Mhm.
another one ends up being murdered.
Mm.
So for me, it's different from a lot of from the other people who were working on the case because
Mhm.
I know these people. I went
Yeah.
to the scene of some of their murders,
Oh wow.
Mhm. Mhm.
and I
Wow.
have this heavy burden.
Mhm.
And not only do I have that heavy burden, when I
Mhm.
become a detective and we're doing a wiretap, and I'm listening to them talking about killing people that I know,
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
and I have to make life and death decisions.
Right.
And remember, I'm pretty much just a kid myself,
Kid
really. You know what
Yeah.
I
yourself.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm have to make
Mhm.
these life and death decisions
Mhm.
that could go either way. If I don't
Mhm.
make the right decision, if I don't pull somebody
Mhm.
at a certain time,
Mhm.
they could
Mhm.
die.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's going to be on my conscience.
Right.
Other people don't have a conscience. I have a
You
conscience.
got to have a
Mm.
conscience. That's right. That's right.
Mm.
That's right.
Wow. Wow. Well, so again, as always, my math ain't mathing. So, because you were 20 years in law enforcement, and you were, I don't know how many years, but in the last 15 years, um, you've had your private detective agency.
Yes.
So I love us melanated people that profess they got all these years behind them, but barely look like the years that we're trying to add up together. And then did I hear you say 5 children?
Yes.
Right? Wow.
Mhm.
How do you balance? any of that, a sin and off,
Oh yeah, that was very difficult because I got earned my degrees while I was working full time for the police department.
and you earn degrees. Okay.
Yeah, and I studying for promotional exams.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. But one thing that worked for me is that everything works together for the good for those who love the Lord.
Yes.
And and my stepfather, when I grew up, he would always say I was stupid. I would never amount to anything,
Oh.
and that had an opposite effect for me. So I
Hmm.
spent most
Mm-hmm.
of my life trying to prove to myself I wasn't stupid. So
Right.
unfortunately, but I was a kid. You would see reading the encyclopedia, sitting on the porch all the time. The
Hmm.
library was 30 feet from us. I was always in the library.
Oh,
So I
nice.
developed this insatiable appetite for learning as a result of that.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that was able I was able to excel in law enforcement and in
Yeah.
academia because of
Hmm.
my love of learning.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it takes so much more, and you, like I said before, you just don't know.
Hmm.
You watch your journey, as Felicia said. Well, I'm adding the years up, and it's not mathing, because how
Hmm.
could you possibly be successful here and then successful there and then successful here, and you still had a family, and then you still had this and you still had that, and now you got a book, and now you got an agency, and now you got a this. How is it all adding up
And again,
to?
because he doesn't look over 35. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All of that, and you still
Mm,
have your health. You still have, your faculties.
Hmm.
You
mm,
still have not went off the deep end.
Hmm.
mm,
That's my favorite thing. I used
mm,
to tell the recruits that I had. I used to tell them all the time. You know when you're not doing well when you start going off the deep end. When
Mm.
you start doing things
mm,
that you don't normally do, then
Mm.
it's time to stop. You don't even have to wait for somebody to
mm,
tell you. The minute
Mm.
that you know you're doing things that you
mm,
you don't normally do,
mm,
you don't normally go hang out with your friends and stay out half the night. Well, then something
mm,
is going on. You know, you
mm,
don't normally get frustrated. Something is going on.
Mhm.
So keeping that balance,
mm.
being able to keep that balance. Did your And I know my kids did, their thing was, okay, we know what's going on. Did your kids and your wife uphold the balance? And I know they didn't all the time, because I
Mm,
know that happens too.
mm,
That
mm,
there's questions every now and then. Well, you don't have to do this,
Mm.
because of
mm,
the dangers, because
mm,
of what you're going through. But
mm.
now looking back, have they talked to you about the values that they see?
Yes. In fact, my oldest daughter, when she read the book, she said, "Dad, I gained so much more respect for you when I really learned what you really went through back then."
Mm-hmm.
She was really,
Mm-hmm.
really amazed. And my
Mhm.
middle daughter, I remember when I was writing the book, and
Mhm.
she was reviewing some of it for me. And she said, "Dad, why you hiding yourself in this book? Talk about
Mm.
your upbringing." She really, she really helped me. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about, growing up, seeing the
Mhm.
people shooting up heroin. Let people know who you are beyond,
Mm.
law enforcement.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because it's
Mhm.
not all
Mhm.
accolades. It's not
Mhm.
Yeah.
always all accolades and
Yeah.
always sunshine.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's dirty spots,
Mhm.
and we
Mhm.
gotta, gotta get those out too.
Mhm.
And that's why I brought that up, that,
Uh-huh.
having a family and
Yeah.
having everything else, because it brings pressure on them as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now there's that.
absolutely.
I'm sorry. There's two questions that I have around that. So first, in has any of your children following in your footsteps to be in law enforcement or anything like that, or detective in your detective agency or anything like that?
Well, yeah, my middle daughter was
Mhm.
actually worked for me as a private detective. She's actually a good one.
Oh, very good.
Mhm.
She's actually a good one. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's
Yeah.
she's very good. And I
Mhm.
had my son
Mhm.
work for me as a private investigator for a while as well.
Mhm. Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And
Good.
and so, especially from where you come from, and maybe it wasn't their experience like it was your experience, but how was it for them growing up? Of course they wouldn't have known everything,
Mm,
while you were going through the things, but just in that. you know, uh, what were their thoughts on you being a detective, or or a police officer as they were growing up?
Well, it's amazing because when I've talked to them about it, they said they always felt like I could handle myself on the street. That
Hmm.
was one thing. But I remember my
Hmm.
son told me he remembered one day I got in this fight with this guy that was like a robot on PCP on the midnight
Oh.
shift.
Mm.
And my
Mm-mm.
son remembered me coming home. He told me, remember, he remembered me coming home with all this mud and everything else on my uniform.
Uh-huh.
And he said he wondered what, he was young. He was wondering what happened to me on the street, and that kind of
Mhm.
concerned him. But
Yeah.
yeah, he tells me this day, he said, "Dad, I never forgive you. You had all that mud on you." I'm like, what has my dad been through tonight?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bless
Make a
God.
Yeah.
difference.
And,
Make a
and then your
difference.
wife, yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about her, but God
Mm,
bless her. And she sounds like a saint because,
mm.
again, in the normal things of having life in when you are not a part of, the neighborhoods in which you grew up in, and not knowing anything else, and then having five children, and then this husband that goes off into this dangerous um, uh, profession. How does she navigate things like that for you?
Yeah, I remember. I don't think she really knew what she was getting into. until-
Just like you when you went down to those retreats.
and her first wake up call, I was doing undercover with this big old lumberjack guy that was on PCP,
Mm. Mm.
And one day we ran. I was like, God, please don't let us ever run into him when I'm off.
Uh-huh.
Mm-mm.
And we were engaged at the time, and so we walked down the street. And I call him the Jolly Green Giant. So I say the
Uh-huh.
Jolly Green Giant. Oh my God, no, right?
Uh-huh.
So he walks past us, right? And I'm looking straight. I'm grabbing the arm, right? He
Mhm.
said, "You know him, don't you?" I'm like, "Just keep walking. Why you want to introduce me to him? I know you know him."
Oh
I'm like,
Lord.
"Keep walking." So far, I said, "If he slices me in half, you want to slice you too? He's a drug. He's a crazy." I
Wow.
said, "Oh my
Wow.
God."
Mm.
So I think it was our first
Mm-hmm.
wake up call. Oh my God. I'm like, I work undercover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're
Oh
not
my
supposed to even say
goodness.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's the things that go on. So
Mm-hmm.
this was your first novel. You say
Mm-hmm.
you're writing the sequel. Are
Yes.
you enjoying the journey?
Oh, I love it. Oh my God. I wish I could do
Mm-hmm.
it every single day of my life. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the writing, do you get the block or do you get the hesitation where it's a
Mm-hmm.
long period of time, or usually it's within measurable amount of time?
Oh, I never get the block. I have
Nice.
enough to write about a 500-page HBO series.
I
Yes.
love it. Oh,
Yes.
so is that
Yes.
next?
Yes. 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 I
I'll
could
put it.
believe that. I could believe that. I could believe that.
Yes.
So I have your website here, www.lookingfortrouble2022.com. Is that where everybody can purchase?
Yes.
Mm.
Okay.
And
Because we had one person comment, they wanted to know where they could get your book. So I put that up for them so that
also,
they would,
also Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
okay, Amazon,
Apple
right.
iTunes, and Google
Mm-hmm.
Play.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So, um, let me just ask you this. In you doing it the way that you did you look for repercussions coming back
From the writing.
from the writing?
Mm.
Oh yeah, people
Mm.
people don't like uh,
Mm.
truth being
Yeah.
exposed about them. Some people are definitely wary. Some people embarrassed.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
people are embarrassed. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
they've become better people by now. I hope. I
Oh.
pray.
Mhm.
Right, right. That's all we can do. That's all we
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have Hicks Publications,
Mm.
that you're publishing under,
Yes.
as well as your Facebook page, where everybody can go to the Facebook page. Please join him on his Facebook page. Go to his website, purchase the book, go to Amazon. Those of you that are the Amazon squad, go to Amazon and pick up his book, and let him know how much you enjoy that type of writing. We all like a good murder mystery, suspense, crime, thriller, all of the big stuff that goes on. But how about adding reality to it?
Yeah.
That's the part. That's the part. This is not something that's made up. This is something that he lived. So we want to make sure that we tell everybody the name of the book is Looking for Trouble, and it's by author Maurice Hicks, who looked for trouble in the beginning. I guess they thought he was looking for trouble. They told him, come on and be a cop, come on and be a military man, come on, come on and be all of this. But the thing about it is, being the person that you are, we can honestly tell that you are not trouble. You were actually, put where you were, by the grace of God, because that's what happens. That's exactly what happens. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. So I want to thank you. We're at the end of our hour. I want to thank you for being a gracious guest and being a part of our first show of the new year. I
Yay.
think this is a great kickoff to the new year, to have someone who has their first book, and it sounds like a winner. I mean, I can't wait to see what you do in the second book. I mean, I'm waiting for that film, because as soon as they do yours, they're gonna do mine.
I know that's right.
I hear you, but now we can't let him go without me asking my question.
I was getting ready to say, Felice, hit him with that last question.
Well, so yeah, because first of all, thank you so much. I just am really inspired by you and all that you've done. But given all of that, in my admiration, I always ask the super successful people in life, what do you do for self care? How do you step away from all that you do just to recharge, to re energize, to connect with your higher power? Because I'm confident in saying that because I know that you do. And so just tell us, what does Maurice do?
Well, my greatest joy is being in church on Sunday, enjoying Sunday service,
Hmm.
to get recharged, to get refocused. As far as physical health, and plus, like I said, I'm part of a mentor program, which I feel good in the sense that there were years where I took people's freedom from them
Mm,
for the betterment of the community. But
sure.
now I have an opportunity to make a difference in young men's lives, and I
Hmm.
take that very seriously.
Right.
I'm a Sunday school teacher too, so this is probably the best part of my life now, that I can give back and impart spiritual wisdom
Hmm.
and encouragement to other young men.
Very good.
Physically, I take Zumba several days a week.
Hear you.
All
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I
All
love this. I love this. Okay, Zumba.
yeah. So
right.
I have a good time dancing and keep my cardio and
Hmm.
Okay.
exercising and lifting weights. So I listen to smooth jazz and listen a lot of inspirational and motivational tapes.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great.
That
That's
that is
great.
good. Zumba,
That's
huh? And
fantastic.
several times a week. Okay.
Yes.
Well, he's got me beat.
Yeah, right.
He's got me beat.
Mm,
Awesome. I love
but
it. I
but
love
again, I want to thank you.
it. Hmm.
Let me see what these last two comments are. We got a couple of comments here. Um, we got a person saying they'll purchase from Amazon. A great story. Thank you for your service. I'm going to buy your book for sure. So you've got book sales.
There
So
you
that's a great step. And I want to thank those that are making comments. I'm happy that you guys are sharing the information. I hope that you will go to his page, check him out, get his book, and follow him. Follow him. Find out when that next book is going to come out. That's what we need as an author. We want to have a basis of people. And I want to ask those of you that are online and are watching to join us every Monday, because every Monday we have another guest, someone different, someone that's either doing books or doing something in the community, because we're trying to build a community of entrepreneurs. And we
Yeah,
want to thank you, Mr. Hicks, for now being a part of our community. You are
absolutely.
now an official member.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh,
Yes, thank
yes,
you. Thank you.
absolutely.
All right. Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you joining us.
Good night.